Welcome to The People's View, a program dedicated to discussing local, state, and national issues and their effect on the American people. The People's View provides a platform for state representatives and national figures to present their viewpoint. Whether it's social, economic, or financial topics, you'll hear it on The People's View.
Hello, this is Representative Carl Seidel welcoming you to People's View. And today, my co-host, Kevin Avard, both of us are representatives from Ward 1, and we're going to interview Representative Michael McCarthy from Ward 3. Ward 2, excuse me, yes. Michael. Almost had you in the wrong place.
We're still neighbors, though.
Well, Mike, how do you like finishing up your second term?
I've enjoyed it. Every day we go up there is a learning experience. I think it's fantastic. I'd say this, the first term I learned how to work within the minority, which is not easy. And
right.
The second term, I think just to make the most of the advantages that we have. And even in situations where things don't go our way or don't go my way on a particular bill, it's always looking for the opportunity, either to learn something from what happened or to build on whatever it is that we've done to move forward with things. And there's always opportunities in everything. And overall, it's exciting. And we also had new people like Kevin here to work with who've done an outstanding job. So
thank you.
We were just saying earlier that, you don't come off like a first-term guy.
Really?
So you don't have that lost look?
No.
I knew it well from the mirror. So
yeah, passing out the candy helps. You get to know people that way.
Yeah, good point. I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Well, what are you going to do if you get into the third term? Do you have anything in mind in particular?
Well, I want to stick with what's worked for me all along. I think what helps me connect with the voters in my district. See, I'm a believer in government being off your back and out of your wallet, and that if you earn your keep, you should keep most of what you earn.
Right.
And I think we have a tremendous system here in New Hampshire, and it accomplishes most of what people want. Your roads and bridges, your schools, police and fire departments, your fundamentals that keep us a society. But I think there is a tendency in government to continually expand. And I think the more responsibility somebody takes on, the more responsibilities bureaucracy takes on, the poorly it executes the functions it was created for. So you can over-diversify and end up with a government that doesn't do very well at any particular thing. So mostly I just want to keep New Hampshire the type of place that made us want to move here. And for the people who grew up here, made them want to stay.
Mm-hmm. You're on the Fish and Game Committee?
Yes, I am.
And tell us a little bit about what they cover. And
it's a rather, though we don't handle a lot of individual legislation, it's a rather broad responsibility. They handle the woodlands, the waterways in New Hampshire. They oversee things relating to boating, ATVing, hunting, fishing, hiking. They coordinate rescues when necessary in the woods when people get lost or injured. And one of the things I really enjoy about it as a model in government for me is that it's a self-funded organization. Mm-hmm. So it's entirely paid for by the people who make use of its services.
Right.
So when you register your boat, register an ATV, buy a hunting or fishing license, you're funding the Fish and Game Commission. So they don't draw funds from the general fund. Likewise, if you don't make use of these activities, you're not paying for them, which is a tremendous thing.
Right.
There's a lot of volunteer work and things that go into it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And we had some interesting legislation that just got signed in. One of them was a prohibition on frivolous lawsuits against landowners.
Oh.
Mm.
So a lot of our land in New Hampshire is privately owned, but open. So if you're ATVing, hiking, hunting, and you get injured, there was a worry that people would engage in frivolous lawsuits against the landowner. And of course, if a few of those go through, then people will start putting up fences.
And posting.
Yes. And then for people who enjoy the outdoors, this would become a lot less of an attractive place to live or to vacation. So this protects the landowner, and it lets them do what a lot of them want to do, is leave their land open. They enjoy it being open for public use. And we want to continue to let that happen.
I think you talked about rescues and stuff like that, and I think you've had quite a few in the newspapers recently. And it's just before the real bad weather sets in, so I don't know if there's going to
I'm hoping people will learn from this.
Well, I think so, because there's some people that were going out at odd times with handicaps, and by themselves, it seems to me that those are the people that you guys have to look out for.
On average, what is the cost to rescue somebody?
I'd heard somewhere like in the many thousands of dollars. It varies depending on what they're getting into.
Right.
But beyond the dollar cost, when you put yourself in a bad situation in the woodlands in New Hampshire or on our waterways, you put the people that will be rescuing at risk as well. So it's not just a financial impact. These people go to great risk to try to save people who, unfortunately, in many cases, put themselves in that position in the first place. The chairman from the Fish and Game Commission, the people who oversee the conservation officers, the people that would be coming to save you, showed me a chart, and it showed that basically people that grew up hunting, grew up fishing, basically grew up in the woods, they are a very small percentage of the folks that we actually have to go rescue. It's usually the person who is, I don't know, driving in the Mount Washington area and decides to go for a walk, and pretty soon,
oops, they get turned around once or twice, and that's it.
they might not even have a cell phone on. They don't have a GPS. They don't have warm clothes. They don't have food. They don't have the good sense to turn back when it's dark, or so. Yes, I would strongly advise people to be careful out there.
Maybe hunter safety should be taught in our public schools.
It's an option, or at least basically woodland safety. If you didn't get into the hunting aspect of it, and I think probably that's one of the detriments. You don't hear as people being involved in scouting as much as they once were, and just by default in an environment like this, if you're involved in scouts, you're going to end up being taught things.
You have some of those volunteer organizations that do a little bit of education, I guess, wouldn't you say?
They try. There's a lot. There's a tremendous amount of volunteer activity associated with the Fish and Game Commission. From people who volunteer to go on rescues, people who help maintain our trails, where people go horseback riding or ATVing. There'll be people who get together on weekends in the summer just to do cleanups in areas where people are engaging in different activities. And the tremendous thing is, it's just a fine example of community spirit and people contributing, putting back into what it is they enjoy.
Do you want to continue on this committee, or do you think?
Oh, very much. The thing I like most about the Fish and Game Committee, with whether it was when I was in the minority or with us being in the majority, the atmosphere in the room when we're talking about those issues, it's very difficult to figure out who's a Republican and who's a Democrat. I would say it's probably the most bipartisan of the committees.
Right.
And it's very interesting, and you'll see situations where an angle on a bill might start out, or someone's reservation might be based on maybe a presumption of a partisan overtone for it. Then after we sit and talk about it for a while, I'll see people do a complete 180, go from being opposed to a bill to completely supporting it.
Right.
So it's a real collegial atmosphere. I enjoy it very much.
That's interesting.
You have interests all over. I believe you're considered a fiscal conservative.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that is probably going to be a big issue again coming up.
Most definitely.
We've had the speaker say that he's still looking for cutting more money out of the budget because of inefficient operation. Do you, from what you've been able to observe up there, do you go along with that statement, where the agencies are not really as efficient in using the money they get as they could be?
Well, I think you will hit a point where you really can't cut further, and that's where you really focus in on waste. And I think when challenged, the people who head up the different different commissioners, when they're faced with further cuts, we say, well, we need to make up the money someplace. So that's where I think they'll dig a little deeper into evaluating their own agencies and finding ways where money's being wasted. And I've talked to some of the state workers who say that, all of us, because they're as close to the system as you can get working in it, see areas where money could be saved, And their incentive, too, is other than the fact that it's their tax dollars as well. It's the thing people always forget. It's no one's money but your own in the end. But you might say, well, geez, my agency's cutting back. Maybe I should make some suggestions, because I don't want the cutback to be my job.
Right.
I don't want it to be my compensation, whatever it is. So if I would love to see just more interaction with the different agencies, all the way down to the employees in the agencies, just making suggestions. I mean, we're perfectly happy to listen, just like we're always happy to listen to the cities. They know their environment better than we do. So if they can offer constructive criticism or suggestions, I would love to listen.
I agree with your suggestion of bringing some suggestions up from the people who are actually implementing some of the laws and procedures. Do you think that they feel comfortable doing that, or there's some chance of being reprimanded if they do.
That would be disappointing.
It would be disappointing,
Yes.
but I've seen a couple of instances where they do get reprimanded. You know, you talk through the commissioner, not around the commissioner.
They might need some protections if they want to be whistleblowers, if you will.
Well, yeah, I don't want to call it whistleblowing. I'd rather call it what Mike is saying. It's they're trying to be helpful. They're trying to be making their agency more effective. But I agree that there are no procedures in there for really looking at the quality of work. Are you accomplishing your objective? Are you doing it in a reasonable amount of money in a reasonable amount of time? How the people who are affected by your regulation feel about your work? Mm-hmm. I'm on a commission for rules and regulations, and Department of Labor apparently gets along very well with the bigger companies, but the smaller guys are the ones that are being hurt. Mm-hmm. Because they, excuse me, they don't have the money to have the lawyer to interpret all these rules and regulations, and sometimes they get fined or penalized, whatever, without really having a chance to reconcile the issue. Mm-hmm. You know, I'd like to see more coming from below, because I think there is, and I've talked to several people who have some very good ideas, but they have to go through the chain of command.
Yeah, perhaps maybe some anonymous online type suggestion box would be the way to go. But yeah, I mean, because we're in Concord or we're in Nashua, but the goings on throughout the state, we're not right on the spot, and we don't have the on-the-job experience that these people do. I mean, there's plenty of times where one of the first things I was taught when I got to the State House, something that will always stick with me, simple phrase was, just because it's your idea doesn't mean it's a good idea. And when people say, oh, there ought to be a law, well, maybe there already is and you don't know about it. Right. Or maybe there's a really good reason why there isn't one. And the same thing is with, you know, the management of our agencies. And as I said, they're not just the people who work for the agencies, they're not just employees of the agencies, but they're consumers of government.
That's right.
They are taxpayers, and they are people who may be concerned about how their money's being wasted as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. Very good point. How's your campaign going?
Wonderful, wonderful. You know, you get to a point where I think after, as I'm finishing up my second term, as people get to know you more, they either like you more or they like you less. And everything seems to be going very well. I spent the day down because we have the one voting place for a primary at the Charlotte Ave School. Right. And throughout the day, just people coming by, saying hello, the occasional, I appreciate your vote on this, or you help my family with that, or even little specific little things.
Are you hearing any concerns, or any of the voters bringing up any particular topics that seem to be ongoing, or is it the economy, or are they showing any concerns at all in this election?
I would say the economy and the job situation overshadows everything. Right. I think in the eyes of most people, everything else is a luxury. You know, if the economy's great, then we can start talking about other things. But it's our responsibility is to try to keep things on an even keel here in this state, and you know, try to maybe make changes for the better, but at the same time, be careful that we don't make changes that upset the balance that already exists. Right. You know.
Have they offered anything that they think is the best road to solution, or you know?
Well, one of my neighbors, whenever he sees me wearing a tie, yells over, "Don't raise my taxes." So
that's funny.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, we know each other well, so he knows that's not a really concern. But yeah, no, it's more of an issue of just being careful about what we spend. One of my theories is, after sitting there for 4 years, is that with 400 people potentially writing legislation, that's 400 people with their hands on the checkbook, and not one of us thinks we're the problem. Right. So no one's the single snowflake that causes the avalanche, or that last drop of water that caused the flood. You know, everyone's bill is a good idea, and someone had told me, they said, you know, when we put through legislation that says we're going to spend $1 million to overhaul a historic barn that George Washington looked at once, well, that's $1 million, and that's big money in New Hampshire.
And George is gone.
Yeah, sure. and you know, in areas like that, we need to find ways of maybe encouraging people that are interested in these things raising their own funds. You know, that will put it on the historic registry. We'll support you in ways that we can that don't involve finances. Right. But, you know, $1 million is $1 million in New Hampshire. You know, people don't bat an eye in New York or Massachusetts till you hit $1 billion. But we have to be a lot more careful with the money here.
Right. Keep your good idea out of my back pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that there's a number of things that charities can do. I mean, some of them go to the government for handouts, and I don't think that is appropriate. I think you should build a consistency of a constituency to support your particular charity or whatever effort you want to make it, rather than going directly to the government for it. The government
some of them do great work, and others,
that's right.
inexplicably, the money evaporates. Yeah.
But I've seen that on the county level as well as the local level. You do have a number of charities that ask for money. I think they have to go and get together, get their volunteers to go out and reach out and get the money they need to exist to further their cause. And that's only a personal opinion. But you're right, the government has to watch where the money goes.
Do you have a campaign website, or are you on Facebook? How do people get in touch with you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook at Representative Mike McCarthy, just on Facebook. So I have a page for that. Beyond that, no, just more direct contact with people. Folks, people seem to have a great sense of comfort reaching out to me directly, which is nice. So whether it's in person at the State House or around the neighborhood, that's a nice thing about our constituent to representative ratio. You can be out raking leaves and someone will just come up and talk to you.
Right.
We're not like in some states where you always picture all the people in government living in like this gated community someplace, inaccessible to the people.
Yeah, that is one of the beauties, I think. I clean carpets. I'm in people's houses, and I talk politics all the time. We talk about issues, but it's interesting that they actually see a working man or woman actually doing something physical, serving, and yet, oh, you're a legislator too? Yeah. I'm one of the little guys. I'm one of your, we're one of the little guys. We're your voice. So I think that's comforting to some people.
Oh, very much so. And that's why I don't know that I would enjoy being in the legislature in another state as much as I enjoy New Hampshire. Because most places, their House of Representatives, their senators, they're all people who went directly from law school to politics. Right. They don't really have life experience. And I think that is a detriment to when they write legislation for the rest of us. Where at the State House that we work in, all walks of life. We had a question the previous term that dealt with small airports, like what we have here in Nashua. And at the time, I knew there were 2 people that had worked for the FAA in the building. So I had questions about airports. I went and talked to them. We have issues concerning drug laws. Well, there's, I think, 3 substance abuse counselors, about 4 ex-police officers, judges, prosecutors. You've got questions for firefighters, military personnel, people who worked in the restaurant industry. You name it, we've got it. So
exactly, and that's a good representation of the people.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
And our committee process is pretty wide open, too. We get a lot of people that come up to add their experience along.
Yes.
Sometimes a little bit too much, but, you can't you have to filter it out a little bit, too.
Well, it's an eye-opener for us as well. In the previous term, there had been a measure to move Fish and Game, most of its resources and personnel, and put it under the umbrella of public safety, which it was, in my opinion, an attempt to raid the self-funding apparatus of Fish and Game. And on the day of the hearing, 300-something people in Hunter Orange showed up to voice their opinion. There were 15 people, 15, yeah, not 1,500, 15 people who showed up to support the issue. The gentleman who had introduced the legislation withdrew it. So that when you talk about our committee process being open, if you have any doubts about which side of the issue you should be on, when you see a bunch of people showing up saying, we would really like you not to do that, you go, maybe I should rethink this.
I find that interesting, too. When you're up there, you'll see color codes. They'll either be red, they'll be blue, they'll be pink, they'll be orange. But they'll stack the seats so or white, it doesn't matter.
No question.
Okay, you're all on the same page over there, right? And I find that rather interesting how people get together in a peaceful way, sit down, adjust the color of their uniforms. You know that they're on the same page, and it speaks volumes.
Sure.
It really does.
And if you didn't have a particular conviction on the issue one way or the other, it can definitely make up your mind. I'm happy to say when there's been large, angry crowds outside the State House, they're rarely there for me. Occasionally I'll have like a friend who's on the other side of the issue, I'll bring them over the window, and be like, I think these people want to talk to you. Just go around and say hi. But, it's great. And it's the beautiful thing about democracy is that everyone has input into it. I mean, whether it's, if, say, for instance, someone wasn't happy with my representation, they don't just have the option to support someone to run against me. They themselves can run against me.
Right.
And that's how I got involved, or I should say, my wife is the source of most of my good ideas. And my wife, Peggy, had said to me in 2008, she said, you have to stop yelling at the TV and actually go do something. I said, oh, okay. So here we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, that is interesting. I think this state is somewhat unique in the way you can go about doing these things.
Oh, of course. It's fascinating.
We have to keep it that way.
And you end up with a very well-educated, deeply engaged group of people in this state. And if nothing else, I would, I've certainly never wanted to push my ideas on other states. I believe that when, we have a nation of 50 states, they're all different from each other. I think we're stronger as a nation for that. But if you decide wherever it is you happen to live isn't the place for you, you have 49 other states to pick from, and you'll fit in some place. But I would love to see more of our way of doing things with politics in New Hampshire. And actually, I guess you'd say it should go back to that, because I think that's more
where it started out.
What we started out here in this country.
It's people friendly.
Other states got away from it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Mike, this has been a wonderful time talking to you. Your ideas are very interesting, and good luck in your candidacy. And hopefully you'll be up there again with us.
You as well. I'm looking forward to working with
thank
both
you.
of you over
Thank
the
you.
next 2 years.
Absolutely.
And beyond.
And thank you for listening in. People's View is sponsored by the Nashua City Republican Committee. And if you want to find out more about the committee, go to NashuaGOP.org. You'll find out we meet every second Thursday of the month at the Crown Plaza. And thank you for tuning in.
I look forward to see you on Election Day.